Okay. Okay. Let's get into this one. Very excited to talk about this topic, like all the topics I've talked about. But this one is especially great because I am noticing that a lot of people just don't really acknowledge and aren't aware of what they're consuming. And I wanted to talk about the importance of just being aware of what you consume, because what you consume is who you become. And in this day and age, it's just, there's so much brain rot, seriously, because the algorithm has trained us to be so short-term minded, so everything is so instant. We need to know what's going on in everything, in everyone's lives, and it's conditioned us to not really think critically. And so I wanted to talk about how reading has really, really benefited my life. And I say this as someone who didn't always enjoy reading. When I was little, I really didn't like reading. I was just, I couldn't focus. I couldn't read for a long time, and I would get mad over myself because I couldn't. But I realized that over time, it's like anything. It's a muscle. Your mind is a muscle that needs to be trained. And when I deleted, social media, I obviously had a lot more time. And what did I do with that time? I replaced it with just books. I read voraciously. I would read before bed. I would read any time during the day. I would read on my computer. I would just read on PDFs. Anytime I got the chance to just sit down to myself, I would try to read, because I realized that we live life in our minds, and if you aren't feeding your mind anything new, how are you going to experience anything? How are you going to think anything differently if you don't consume new ideas, new stories, new narratives? And it's something I didn't realize was completely, changing my life, because it's not really talked about. And I know a lot of people want to, read, but at least for me, the important thing was, it doesn't really matter what you're reading. It really doesn't. You don't need to find the perfect book to read. Just start reading. Just read whatever excites you. Read whatever is interesting to you. And I can't tell you what that is for you, because you have to figure that out for yourself. But it's a really exciting process and journey of just, finding things you didn't know you were interested in. For example, I was reading about the history of the world through 6 drinks. So through coffee, through beer, through wine, through tea. It's just you just look at things differently. I don't know how to explain it. You just see life in a different perspective, and it gives you a lot more appreciation for life, because the life we live, it's like a tiny speck. It's a tiny, tiny little speck of what is actually going on in the entire world, in reality, in the universe. It's a tiny speck. So if you don't, if you aren't consuming things that are outside of your little bubble that you're in, I think that's a sad way to live life. I think just the exposure to new ideas gives you a chance to really appreciate and be excited for life. And the other thing is, when I'm reading, a lot of times I feel like uncomfortable. I feel like I'm struggling to focus. I don't even know what I just read. But one tip that I always keep in the back of my mind is just lean into that discomfort. Just lean into it. Like, what's gonna go wrong? Like, what are you gonna? Nothing's gonna go wrong. Like, you're just gonna lean into that discomfort. It's gonna be okay. And you will realize that your mind subconsciously will think about the things you read, and it'll start making connections within your mind, and you will just have a bunch of connections that you're not consciously thinking about but will randomly pop into your mind. It's really cool. It's really cool because you're just expanding your horizons. That's what it is. And if you're reading, you're going into someone else's mind. And one thing I think is fascinating is the fact that you can go into the minds of people that have lived hundreds of years before us. I think that's fascinating. And I think you will come across little nuggets of knowledge and little pieces of wisdom that are timeless. Even though our modern society is completely different and changed, a lot of the principles are still the same. The older the problem is, the older the solution will be. So I really encourage you guys, just fall in love with reading again. I've fallen in love with it over and over again. And now I have just 6 books that I have a tab open on. And you don't need to finish the books. You don't. Just get what you need to get out of it, and you can move on. And another thing is, if a book really resonated with you, go back and read it again. Because in that second or third or fourth time you read it, you'll pick up on things. Then it'll really solidify your knowledge. It'll solidify your learning. And it's a great process. And it is way better than doom scrolling on social media, because that is just rotting your brain. It's literally just destroying your brain. Because all social media is, it's all trends. It's all trends that come and go. But if you're reading something timeless, it'll stay and it'll last. And it's like, I think it's one of the greatest ROIs you could get on your time. ROI is return on investment. You're spending a little bit of time every single day. It could be 10 minutes, it could be 20 minutes, it could be 15 minutes. A little bit of time every single day, and you are going to see that time compound. It's going to compound. Like, you will have so much more information, and you will be able to make so many more connections if you just do a little bit every single day. And it's truly incredible to see how much it changes your perspective. I don't really, I'm trying to articulate it as best I can, but I encourage you guys to just see it for yourself. And, that's honestly the most important thing, is just doing it. So, yeah, as always, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. It's a beautiful, beautiful day outside. Make sure you guys are going outside. Beautiful summertime. So yeah, as always, stay grounded, stay present, stay positive, and stay real.